Your captain, your leader is in his 30s, and he's an older guy, and I had a lot of experience with that with Zdeno Chara in Boston, and that seemed to obviously work out really, really, really well.
Well, Tampa's going to be on your left, Pittsburgh's going to be on your right. What are you expecting out of this game? We're paying you to be an analyst, not to be a fan tonight.
Are you bigger?
Yeah, I saw a fun picture on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Maybe it's not a big difference like Captain America, but yeah, it was a funny picture.
Avengers!
Assemble.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We'll just be vulnerable here. This was a gong show to start, but that's okay. We are here now. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE. Add me as a friend on Facebook, Kevin Olenek. Like, agree, or disagree with the podcast on Facebook. Like the Hockey Podcast or whatever name is coming up. We'll get into that a little bit later. And, of course, we'll get into all of that a little bit later. But I think, first of all, I probably owe 33 beers to these three people, especially to Heidi, who... Okay, so, as you know, my laptop was stolen, or you may not know, my laptop was stolen just about a month ago. I borrowed one from a friend, and now that one, which had a battery... that was dying, it looks like the battery has actually died. So that has not worked for 4 days. Then the computer, a friend of mine gave me his MacBook Pro, and the software on it is not compatible to what we need for what I usually use to record. So I thought, get Heidi to record. And Heidi's attempt at recording has completely screwed up her computer. And so we're recording off something else, but we are alive. Heidi, are you alive?
Yes. And we'll just add to that point that my actual better computer is also not working. So I'm on my backup computer as well. So.
Wow.
It's all fun. Yeah.
It's all fun. Sean, how many beers have you had while waiting?
None, actually.
Because I'm proud of you. Tyler, how many beers have you had since waiting?
It's too early in the day, Kevin.
Oh, all right. So I better put down my beer that I have had.
Well, each their own.
Yeah, it's everybody's life. But thank you, everyone. We are here now. We are recording. It is sounding good, and that's basically what matters. But we're also, depending on when you listen to this, we are about 2 hours, or today is a big day. Bianca Andreescu is facing Serena Williams in a rematch in the Rogers Cup that final that Serena had to pull out due to injury. We have that match again, and we are in the midst of history as Bianca Andreescu could be the first female to ever Canadian female to ever be in the U.S. Open final, and could be the first Canadian female to win. Obviously, I think that. So I think that this is just a great story, and I feel like we should start there. What are we feeling about Bianca?
Shout out to us for starting our hockey podcast with tennis news and tennis talk.
Yes.
But I'm stoked. I'm really excited to watch this. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal for Canadian sport. It's a big deal for female sport. It's a great storyline. So I'll be anxiously watching in about 2 hours time.
Yes.
I just think it's such a great Canadian story. You know, the family comes over as immigrants. She's just grown up as a Canadian. She's burst onto the scene. She's doing it with such grit and determination, and yet a lot of class and victory, and obviously people are going to be excited to see this match today. And the other side of it is exciting because Serena Williams, it's a big match for her. There's unfinished business from the Rogers Cup, and then of course in last year's U.S. Open final, Serena had the meltdown with the chair umpire and ended up losing to Naomi Osaka, I think is the name of the Japanese player that won last year. So Serena's got a lot to prove in this one as well.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to watch. It's awesome to see Canadian athletes, especially in non-hockey sports, do really well and see how the country rallies around them. And she's such a fun player to watch too. She's always fighting, and the semifinal was insane because you thought it was going to go 3 sets, and she comes back from 2 breaks down to win it. So it's just I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is. I think if she wins, this is my nominee. I not even if she wins, this is my nominee for Sports Story of the Year in Canada. But I know that the Raptors will get a lot of attention. Even the ratings, although the ratings in the NFL were great for NFL, there was, because that game was atrocious, awful, and terrible, a lot of people were turning to Bianca. So I think today will be a big day. It's a big day for Canadians. And we're excited about that. And we are excited as well because, as one of my friends tweeted, the fall has turned and hockey season is really upon us. Rookie camps have started. Things are going. But probably one of the more interesting things that has happened within the last couple of weeks has been the changes in the media landscape on Rogers, on NBC, and a little bit with TSN, but not too much. So Nick Kyperos, John Shannon, and Doug Maclean will not be back on Hockey Night in Canada or on Sportsnet this year. Doug Maclean, that was announced in June, but it was continued to be confirmed. Kyperos is gone after 21 years. John Shannon has been a long-time staple, and they are gone. So we're going to be having some new faces there. They're also locally Vancouver Canuck-wise. We'll get into that too, because there's been some changes in the Athletic as well. But I do want to get into as well. But what was your reaction to that? Are you surprised? Not surprised? What are your thoughts?
I think I'm not surprised. I think Rogers isn't reaping the benefits monetarily as much as I thought they would after signing on for that long-term national rights contract they did with the NHL, and I think they're trying to cut back on some of the costs of producing the games and go and just move on as well, because I think it's time. I think there has been a bit of a groundswell of movement to get some different analysts in there, and yes, of the old men yelling at the TV. So Kyperos and Doug Maclean make sense to me with that. And I think John Shannon to an extent, but I've never been one to understand the John Shannon the hatred towards him that has been on social media. I think he's a really smart guy who has a lot of experience. Like he worked for the NHL for years. He's running their TV department, and then he ran Hockey Night in Canada as well. So he has the inside. That he has a lot of connections and has been around the game for so long that I think his experience will be missed.
The one that surprises me the most is Kyperos. I mean, when they acquired the national package there late 2013, I mean, at the time, Kyperos was like the face of Sportsnet's hockey coverage and a day one guy. And it just makes you wonder if he was picked for termination, or however you want to put it, no contract renewal, whatever it really was. Is it again because it's a controversial figure and Rogers wants as vanilla a product as possible? I mean, the other people that have disappeared have been Glenn Healy, PJ Stock, anybody that was a lightning rod for fans is gone. And I just don't understand that. I mean, do they want this product to be as boring as possible, or what's the deal? Like, John Shannon, I totally agree with what you said, Sean. I mean, with his experience and knowledge and what he brought was an asset to the coverage. But he seemed a little more expendable than Nick Kyperos. Whether you agreed with him or not on things, he's a former Stanley Cup champion on the panel with a lot of connections in the game, and he'll be missed.
Yeah, I'm more surprised, like, in the sense of, like, who is replacing all of these people, because yeah, like, I understand, like, maybe from, like, sort of like a marketing perspective, like, doing a little bit of a shake-up, trying to do something different, like, hopefully not boring, as Tyler was saying, but I like, maybe I just don't know all the broadcasters that could possibly be coming in, but yeah, I'm kind of have mixed feelings about the whole thing, but I like Shannon and I like Kyperos too, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, yeah, I think what they're trying to do is go younger, but it has, like, they tried younger already with what's that? I'm butchering Butcher's name. Strabo, you know who I'm talking about.
Strabopoulos?
Yeah, Strabo. And he didn't fit in any way, shape, or form, that they had to bring in Ron Maclean to do Saturdays and Sundays. So that is, it is interesting. But it's one of those things that I think that they're relying a little bit too much on what the social media is saying and not saying, and losing. I think that's what's going to happen here, is there's going to be a quality missing. So, but my theory, if this was me, if they are hiring me to do this, and they're not, but if you want to, that's fine. This is how I would go. Now, hear me out here. The early game, the East games, the early games, I would go Ron Maclean. I would go Colby Armstrong, Elliot Friedman, who is, not polarizing. I think he's well-loved. And someone, and maybe a Kelly Rudy. Maybe not. But the night group, I would go David Amber. Hear me out on this. This is my night crew. David Amber, Kevin Bieksa, Kelly Rudy, and like a Louis DeBrusque or someone like that, or Brian Burke. Actually, I would have Brian Burke in the second slot, because those are the guys that have the Western connections, and those are the people that have familiarity with the West. Now, if you want polarizing, Kevin Bieksa is going to be polarizing. The Vancouver Canuck fans are going to love Kevin Bieksa. They're going to find him entertaining. They're going to applaud everything he says. The Calgary Flame fans and the Edmonton Oilers fans are going to absolutely hate him, because although they will find him entertaining, he is not going to be necessarily super objective about them. So I'm hoping, I can see them putting on a Kevin Bieksa in a studio role. Colby Armstrong, I think, works in an early role. Elliot Friedman works in an early role. Brian Burke works in a... So I think that you can go with two different types of teams. And I also think that they probably want to give Bieksa and a guy like Brian Burke as much airtime as they can, because both of them, well, especially Burke, I think, is becoming a lot more popular.
Kevin, so you basically are saying we're going to put Burke and Bieksa on the same thing?
Absolutely. Get your popcorn out.
Wow. Like, that if you want anything that's going to cause, like, rage on Twitter and just rage in general, like, for any of those late games, like, having both of them on together, that's a take for sure.
As fun as all of that would be, my guess would be that Burke will just take Kyperos' spot on the panel, and the rest of it stays the same. And then what you would have essentially is you have your host, you'd have a former executive, you'd have a former player in Rudy, and you'd have an insider with Elliot Friedman. And for Rogers, that would kind of fit with the whole play it safe style of doing things, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be too much of a change in terms of how they handle it, but I do think you're going to see a lot more rotate cast in terms of that early spot and like one spot on the panel for both the early game and the late game, because I think they're going to give other sort of quote unquote younger or newer faces a shot. Maybe we'll see a Steve Dangle on national TV and for like the Wednesday night games or something like that, or they'll maybe move Jason York up or give Jeff Merrick a go as well type deal. I think we're going to see a rotating cast at least to start the season.
I really like Colby Armstrong. I think he's come along very quickly as a TV broadcaster, and I'm sure they're looking at giving him more opportunities.
Yeah. There's some growing talent that they have there that they can use in a variety and creative different ways. The one question that has not been addressed at Rogers yet, not fully, there has been rumors, but do we know what's going on with Don Cherry?
I'm pretty sure he's just back after the Steve Simmons trying to basically say that he's fired when he wasn't. I think Don's back until until he's done type deal. Sort of give him 1 or 2 more seasons and then give him the out like they did with Bob Cole, where they give him the tour of the Canadian cities.
Yeah, I see it going that way as well. I mean, the segment still, I'm sure, pulls big numbers. They've got a huge sponsor there. It's Budweiser, I believe, that sponsors them currently. So, from a business point of view, whether you think he's too old or outdated or not, I mean, he's still a revenue generator for the show.
Yeah, I agree. You can't just get rid of Don Cherry. You have to have that. Yeah, the Bob Cole swan song thing of phase him out or whatever. Because we can't just all of a sudden not have Coach's Corner with Don Cherry just plain cold turkey gone. That would just be a bad idea, I think.
I don't know if in this day and age with when accurately or not, and with the Simmons article, there was a lot of people that brought up Don Cherry and his history and some of the things that he said, and some have argued that he has contributed to racism in hockey, and some would feel that he doesn't deserve that send-off, that Bob Cole send-off. And do you think that there would be some offense if they gave him that Bob Cole send-off? Like, it would be, or there would be a massive outpour, or it would be just like keyboard warriors?
I think it'd be massive. As much as that, there is some good points in there in his old school, little xenophobic look at hockey and other things. I do think that he's done enough, and he was always a controversial figure. So he's done enough to deserve that send off, even if you disagree with how he's done it. And you're not going to please everyone, right? So even Bob Cole, people were getting fed up with him just because they didn't like his cadence and they didn't grow up with him. But the people who did still really liked him as a play-by-play guy. So with Don, I think you may not like him, you may not agree with him, but you have to understand this position he is in Canadian history and Canadian lore for hockey, and you have to give him that a proper send-off.
To me, I think there's a bit of a silent majority effect that goes along with Don Cherry. Like that, again, they must surely still be pulling some pretty good numbers for his segment. But how many people are online going to bat for Don Cherry? I would say not very many, because people don't want a backlash in doing so. So we'll see. When the Rogers suits feel that there aren't the eyeballs to justify the expense of having Don Cherry around anymore, that'll be the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine going on Twitter and announcing that I am all for Don Cherry and he's my favorite person. So,
I went on Twitter trying to stick up for Don Cherry, and I was getting the backlash from people.
Yeah.
Even some of my closer friends were like, "What are you doing?" So
yeah. I think Don Cherry is just a product of Don Cherry. To say that Don Cherry contributed this and that, I think that's maybe a topic for another day. Like, I think what Evander Kane talked about this week about racism in hockey, I do think that it is an important conversation. I'm not saying that it's not, but I don't know if that's completely Don Cherry entirely, or just the culture that has always existed. And you can say that Don Cherry contributed to that or not. I don't know if I necessarily would agree with that or not, but that's for other people to decide. But the other one that happened this week was, and I think that people misunderstood what happened here. So I think it's important that we clarify this. Pierre Mcguire was not removed from NBC. He was removed from the number one analyst spot, and he's going to be somewhere. He's going to be doing like number 2 or number 3. Brian Boucher will be with Doc Emmerich and Ed Olchuk. Pierre Mcguire is a polarizing figure because he loves hockey. He's absolutely passionate about it. He knows all the players, but as the clip showed, this man is weird for a lot of people. What do like? First of all, what do we think of Brian Boucher and like Pierre Mcguire? What do we want out of this?
Well, I think it's sort of the same thing as Sportsnet. It's the changing of the guard. It's time to give the newer faces who've done good work a shot at being the top again. As you said, Pierre Mcguire is a bit of a polarizing figure. He's a little quirky, weird, eccentric, however you want to call it. But I really think that he's one of those. Like, it's unfortunate. I think he's one of those like old men who's set in his ways, and he has his little quirks, and they're gonna annoy people. But he's old enough that he's not going to be able to change, right? So I don't think I think the backlash to Pierre Mcguire is overdone and a bit too much in my opinion. But I still do get why people don't like him, and he's not necessarily one of my favorite analysts because he has too many crutches that he relies on to just speak words instead of actually making any sort of analytical comments. So I think that's what they're hoping for with transitioning to Boucher.
I just want to make the comment. This has not been officially confirmed by NBC, but from a pretty solid source and some pretty solid reporting on Twitter apparently about this. But I mean, this was coming from last year. Wednesday night doubleheaders, they had Pierre working the late game. They had Boucher working the earlier game with the lead crew. And then in the playoffs, they had Boucher working with Doc Emmerich throughout the Eastern Conference Series. They had Pierre doing a lot of the Western. So I don't know. I don't really understand the timing, frankly. I mean, Pierre Mcguire has been like this forever, it seems like. I don't think there's much difference in style with him. Brian Boucher came along a few years ago and has been improving, but I just don't think he brings as much to the role as Pierre does. But Brian Boucher is frankly a better sounding and better looking guy, I guess, for the role. And NBC is going that route. I don't know if they're trying to dumb down the product for the average fan or what the objective is there. But they've made changes before. Going back to 2014, I believe they replaced Dave Strader, the late Dave Strader. God bless the guy. They replaced him in the number 2 role, play-by-play, with Kenny Albert. And I didn't really understand that either. I mean, Dave Strader was an excellent voice and was doing a great job, and he got demoted. So NBC doesn't sit still for too long before they make some changes.
Just as like somebody who doesn't really watch like too much hockey on NBC, like I feel like I don't have like a ton to say about the whole shakeup there, but maybe just kind of echoing my comments with Sportsnet. Like maybe it's just a matter of they're just wanting to mix people around and just kind of have a shakeup and see what they can do. But I think Pierre Mcguire, like I think he still has a little bit of fallout from just what happened last year with Kendall Coyne Schofield. So I don't know if maybe that was the ultimate factor, but I think that might still be something. That might be sort of maybe was a somewhat last straw.
I feel like that was a bit of a factor because it was embarrassing for NBC when that whole thing unfolded. I mean, it was one of those quick Twitter things that kind of blows through in a couple of days, but it did cause some embarrassment for the network, and maybe as you say, Heidi was probably the last straw for them.
Well, the other question is my understanding was his health wasn't good. Hasn't been great the last couple of years, and I wonder if there is something to do with that as well. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there's some personal decisions that we're not aware of either. That he may just want to not be as high on. being as busy or just wants to be closer to the family or just wants to do some certain games. There could be some personal factors in that as well. But yeah, I do think the Kendall Coyne Schofield thing, I do think that had a lot to do with it. And even though Kendall Coyne Schofield, who by the way is going to be on the San Jose Sharks broadcast, now it didn't mention she wasn't as offended as everybody else was. I do think NBC felt that they took a hit with that. They had to do something.
Yeah, I was feeling the same way, Kevin. I wondered if Pierre's health had something to do with this, but like last year they had him doing more Western Conference games, which means more travel. So that doesn't seem to fit. Although maybe number of games was reduced or something, but I don't know. It's a strange one. I am sure eventually we'll hear from somebody at NBC who's in an official capacity, and we'll get some kind of explanation for it. But it's clear they've been really high on Brian Boucher for a while here.
Yeah. I one thing I do think at least three of us will probably agree, and I don't know if Heidi will be with us on this. Ray Ferraro, I hope we do hear more from Ray Ferraro, because I think he is growing as an analyst. Of course, he's on the NHL 20. There, he's been the analyst on that for a while, but not that's whatever. But I'm hoping Ray Ferraro gets more work, because I actually do think he is the best analyst right now in Canada. In my opinion, is Ray Ferraro.
Yeah, no, I like Ray Ferraro. From what I've heard from him, I'm a fan of that. So if he gets more work, then that's cool with me.
Yeah, it's too bad he's not on more national broadcasts in Canada. He is very good.
Yeah, but he probably doesn't want to leave TSN, which is fair, and his call. Which leads next to, because I do think that there's a connection here in terms of what is going on with the NHL and the NHLPA. The NHL announced that they will not be reopening the collective bargaining agreement. There is some dispute if the NHLPA will. Some feel that they will. Some feel that it's not wise. The big debate is about escrow. I'm hoping one day we can get a guest on here that actually can break down the concept of escrow for those who struggle with the concept of escrow or math or all of that, because I think it is a very complex topic that I wouldn't mind having someone get on that. But are we expecting a reopener? What are you thinking on this?
I don't think we'll see them reopen. I think there's two. From what I've gathered from the reports we've seen, there seems to be two options right now and two outcomes. One, we just continue on as status quo. The PA doesn't reopen, and it gets extended for the next 2 years, I believe. And then we continue on for the 2 years that the CBA signed for, or they actually extend it. With some negotiating to get some changes to the escrow, as well as maybe potentially something to do with the Olympics, because I think those are the two big issues with the players.
To me, the whole idea that the players would want to reopen it now seems a little odd. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. But, I mean, you look at what's happening right now with restricted free agents, and it seems like the players have more leverage and power than they've had in a long time with the system as it is now. So I'm not sure why they would want to revisit things. I know escrow has always been a big thing for them. I know the Olympics for the higher level players is a big thing as well. But, this is a system. If anything, I would think it would be the owners that feel like it's a bit broken, where they're losing control now.
Well, I think that a little bit of that is just the way the game's transitioning. It's not necessarily the fact that the players are having a little more control now. It's more the fact that the game's becoming one that favors the younger players more than the veterans. And we're in this middle ground where teams have overpaid for veterans, and they're still on the books, and then they're trying to sign these young RFAs to deals that make sense for both, but they don't have the cap. They're too tight to the cap to make it an easy negotiation. Because I think that's one thing with the Canucks with Brock Besser is if they weren't so close to the cap and didn't have, say, the Louis Eriksson or a Brandon Sutter or name a couple others that are just basically wasting cap space for them at this point because they aren't playing up to what they were signed for. I really think the Besser deal would be done because the cap space would be there, as well as I think the players are getting smarter too. They're understanding because it's a shared revenue system and a cap system. They have to look at where the cap is going. They can't just sign, oh, this is what I'm worth at this time, so therefore I'll sign my 6-7 year deal for $6.5 million, and then then become one of the best deals in the league for that team. Let's throw the Nathan McKinnon out there. They don't want to get McKinnon, as I've said multiple times on social media and many discussions in terms of that aspect. I think that's a big thing too. Is these players are becoming smarter and more educated on the way the salary cap works, and they're now trying to exploit it.
Yeah, I can't see it. Kind of just basically both Sean and Tyler kind of said kind of what I was thinking too, is that I can't see them reopening it. At least not right now. And I think maybe it'll become more of an issue, maybe more when the Olympics get closer. But yeah, that's. I don't think I have anything else to kind of add that hasn't already been said.
Kevin, was it you that I thought brought up the fact that, or maybe it was Sean, somebody here I thought brought up the issue of the U.S. television deal being up for renewal pretty soon? Was it next year?
It's in 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be a reason perhaps for the league to want to maintain the status quo, get that new deal secured, and then explore maybe picking a battle over labor issues after that?
I think a little bit for sure, and that's the same. That's part of why we're seeing the holdouts with the RFAs as well this summer as well. Them not willing to sign the longer term deals is because they know that the cap is going to take go up a decent chunk once that new U.S. deal is signed. And then I think that I've also heard rumblings that they might reopen the Canadian national rights deal a little earlier than what is actually signed because of everything that's going on with Rogers and Sportsnet and how they haven't really made the money that they had hoped off this deal. So either way, those two, the U.S. deal for sure, and then potentially another Canadian deal coming up, is going to give the salary cap a significant bump up. So, like I said, these players don't want to get McKinnon. They don't want to be worth $8-9 million and being paid $6.
Yeah, and I also think I think the TV deal I think is a lot of this perspective as well. But I also think in the other, like, I'm not. The other thing that I think is playing, I wonder if playing into this a little bit. I mean, we look back at Andrew Luck's retirement, and we look back even at how we're talking about NHL players now, because 30 is basically almost becoming the new 50, where it's, you know what, if you're 30, we really don't want much to do with you, kind of thing. We think you're too old. And now these players are kind of thinking a little bit differently in terms of how they want to structure that contract as well, because they have to think a little bit more about their future. If they're 28, as an example, are they basically going to be washed out of the league? Is this going to become, I'm not trying to overstate this here, but is this becoming a 20 to 25-year-old league where that's where the prime is? But if you're over, like, I think there's a lot of things here at play that I agree. I don't necessarily, I think, they're being smarter. They have to think more about their future. So I'm not surprised that they're not going to, I don't think that anything is really going to happen there, but I think there's some things that I think that a lot of players are now thinking about that I think is a little bit different than what we were thinking about even 10 years ago, where it's like, or when the last contract was up, is like, the age of retirement may be a lot different than we realize going forward. And especially with concussions and what we know about that now and injuries and stuff, it's I think it's creating a different sort of future thinking for a lot of players. I wonder.
Yeah, and I think one issue I think that might get raised, not this time, but when they do have a full negotiation for a CBA, would be the length of entry-level contracts. I think with the way, as we said, with the way the NHL is going and things get, and the better players are in that 20 to 25 range, I think they're going to want to get paid sooner. So I think you might see the PA look at trying to shorten the ELCs from 3 years to 2.
That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. And there's a lot of expectations around what we're seeing from 18-year-olds. You look like what happens with Connor McDavid, or you look at what people are having with Elias Pettersson. You even took a look about how Canuck fans are talking about Olli Juolevi, and like, he's a bust. Yeah. I think that really, I think that there's a lot of changes that are coming, and I do think that is that it's interesting going forward, and with a lot, I think now, and a lot of expectation around prospects. I think there's a lot of ways that it's changing. There's a changing landscape here. I do agree with you. I can see them talking about the ELC, but in terms of just before I transition to RFA, do you like the World Cup, or do you want the NHL players back in the Olympics?
I want them back in the Olympics for sure. The World Cup is interesting if you can grow it and stop having it be a stop-start little thing, because that's been the issue with the Hockey World Cup, is that it's been like one or two times and then a break, and then changing idea and then come back. Because it was in '96 they had one, and then nothing until 04, and then nothing until this past summer, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and they're trying to make it work with 8 teams. The first couple of times, you basically had filler teams in there, and then in 2016, you had this Team North America gimmick, and you had Team Europe, which was great for the players that got to play for Team Europe. But it's not. I mean, it's not. This really an international competition when you're combining players like that. Like,
yeah.
You know, I don't know. And for most people, players and spectators, it just doesn't have the same allure as the Olympics.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I would for sure love to have the Olympics back. Like, the World Cup is sort of like I don't know. If you're not going to have the Olympics, then I guess this World Cup is okay. But yeah, I would really hope that the Olympics come back. But I also see the concerns in having the NHL players involved in the Olympics, because then you worry about injuries and the time off of schedules and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of tough to not go full fangirl on the Olympics, because I do love it, but I have those other concerns as well.
And I wonder if that's going to be something the preseason. I wonder if that's something they going to want to reopen as well. The length of it, how that works, the preseason games, things like that. I wonder if that's going to be a reopener as well, because I think there's a lot of people feeling the NHL preseason is too long, but and that's another change that I think is going through. Before we get to RFAs, Heidi, did you have your thought or your question? I don't. Did you plan for one?
I have one, but I think that we should leave it till the end.
Okay, that's fine. I was, wanted to. That's good. Okay, we will do that. All right. So the RFA part of this is becoming a big conversation. Of course, we talked a little bit about where Brock Boeser is at, and some of the things there. I think I'm hoping that we could talk some people out of the panic. Is there any reason at this point to panic that none of the big name RFAs have signed?
I think now that we're less than a week out into camp, I think it is time to be a little concerned, but I don't think panic is the right word. I still think there's still lots of time for them to make a deal and get into camp on time. And I think most of them will. I think there's only maybe one or two that are going to go past the beginning of training camp without a deal.
Yeah, I agree. As long as they're signed for the start of camp, it's not a huge issue. Although I'm feeling like concerned is a reasonable way to feel at this stage.
Yeah, no, like full on panic is maybe extreme, but I don't know. Every single day that goes by that Kachuk's not signed and Mangiapane's not signed for the Flames, like I don't know. It's becoming concerning because I don't know. We went through that a couple years ago with Johnny Gaudreau too. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not full on panic mode, but maybe by next weekend I'm going to feel a lot different.
I'm not worried, even if there is some players that wait until training camp, because I mean, that happens. I think part of this is not wanting to be the first one. I think once we'll have two at a time sign, I think that we'll get a bunch. I do think we're going to get a bunch this week. I do see that. I'm not super panicked. I don't think it's going to be beneficial for teams to have them sign within the season. I don't think they want the William Nylander situation, and I don't think players want to be in that William Nylander situation. But to where they're playing in December, I think the only maybe two that I could see hitting regular season, maybe three. Marner, I think, will hit regular season, but I think he'll sign rather quickly. I think Rantanen will hit regular season, and I think that there is sorry, Heidi, I'm about to make you a little worried here, but I do think that there's a possibility Matthew Tkachuk could wait till the regular season as well. Those are the only three that I'm seeing here. I think everyone else will sign rather quickly. That's kind of my sense. I don't know what you guys think, but
yeah, I could see Tkachuk kind of unfortunately being that one that is going to be the kind of one that's going to slide in there last. Which you're rightfully so to point that out to me, but. With that being like literally my favorite player, but it'll get done. I just have to just not panic, I guess, too much.
I don't think any players are that keen in being part of a William Nylander type situation like we saw last year. It just sets them back, for the season, and there's a lot of negative publicity there. So. I think that we'll see the players continue to exercise whatever leverage they have until they absolutely need to get a deal signed, and then you'll see most of them sign. But we'll see. Every player is a little different. Every agent's a little different in how hard they're going to go to the carpet to get a good deal.
Yeah, with Besser and McAvoy, though, I think they are a little bit different because they came in and they've only had 2 accrued seasons, I think is what it is, and because of that, they don't qualify fully for that group 2, so they don't nearly have the same amount of leverage in terms of being able to negotiate with other teams to maybe potentially get an offer sheet. So they have to either negotiate a new contract, accept the qualifying offer, or sit out. So I think it's. Those two are a little bit different, and that's my only worry is that because there's no real leverage for other than sitting out that for Besser and McAvoy is that that's what they'll end up doing.
Mm. Yeah, and to be fair to Brock Besser, though, he does have a lot going on in his own life too. That I think that I would hope and I imagine Canucks management is taking that into factor here a little bit as well. So I'm not super worried about that. I think that will get done. Hopefully sooner than later, because I think for training camp you do want to, especially with all these guys, you want to start establishing these lines. A couple of other quick signings here, and then maybe we'll get into some quick training camp stories. Nikolai Goldobin, number 77, did sign a 1-year, $900,000 contract. What are we hoping here?
Right now he's probably penciling as the 13th or 14th forward, but the Canucks would be a lot better off if he could find a way to gain the trust of Travis Green and become a top 9 player, because it sounds like that's what they want to do. They want to go for a top 9 and a 4th line. They want to have three lines that they can roll out there pretty regularly, and that can play against any of the lines of the other teams, and play in not only just offensive or defensive situations, but both. So that would be great, but I'm not holding my breath, and I think he's going to be likely sitting in the press box to start the season.
Tyler?
Yeah, no real opinion on that one there, Kevin. Not sure.
Not sure. Okay. What are Heidi? Do you have an opinion?
Nope.
Okay. What are some training camp from the Flames and the Canucks? I guess. What are some training camp stories you're interested in as we head in?
For the Canucks, it's all about line combos and deep pairings, as well as what the power play will look like. I think is really what the Canucks training camp stories are going to be all about. Because I think for unless McEwen or Gaudette can really surprise and really force out the management's hand and Travis Green's hand, I don't foresee them making the team. And then you're just looking at combinations, and then how the Canucks can work the system and which veterans get sent down.
Yeah, that's the big one for me is, there isn't room for all the veterans theoretically. So if it's not Lou Eriksson that gets the wave and ends up in Utica, who is it? So that'll be interesting to see. There's going to be great internal competition. The lines will kind of figure themselves out once they figure out, who's in and who's not. But it'll be very intriguing to see. We've seen this before. Sam Gagner, didn't make the cut at the start of the season last year, and that raised a few eyebrows. So we have seen that trend with the Canucks where they won't be afraid to bury veterans in the minors.
I think from the Flames' perspective, it's when we have these two players who we still don't know whether they're going to sign before training camp or what's going on. It's going to see how the lines are going to be. With that, if they have somebody else is going to have to step up with that, if like somebody maybe not, well, hopefully everyone will be ready to start the season. But so I'm interested there. I'm interested to see where Lucic might slot in. And I'm kind of you never know. And I'm kind of interested to see too how Talbot's going to do. Whether he's going to really come in and try to I don't know, take that. Maybe this is arguable, that kind of starting position away from Rittich, but kind of see who's going to end up starting to. Because I right now have no prediction as to who is going to be starting opening night, because you never know. Talbot could just come in and just steal that job.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's automatic for Rittich to have the job by default here, just being there already. Big loss to prove for Cam Talbot, so that will be great to see how he does in a Calgary Flames uniform. And I agree. How will they utilize Milan Lucic? It's that'll be one of the fascinating things for Calgary this year.
For me, from the Flames' perspective, I'm interested in seeing which of the young D step up without Valimaki there, because I do think that that's something that I do think the Flames did not address very well in the offseason, that probably they needed to. I'm interested in that Rittich-Talbot battle. I'm also interested in Lucic. But I'm also interested, the other guy I'm kind of intrigued about is I know Dylan Dubé is going to rookie camp, but I'm intrigued to see how close he is to making this team on a regular basis. Because I think he's there. I think he's almost there. But we'll see. See that. And I'm interested in seeing how, Lucic fit in the dressing room, outside the dressing room. And I'm just interested in seeing how this team responds after a disaster of a playoff. See how this team responds. For the Canucks, I think the line combinations, Olli Juolevi, and will they name Bill Horvat captain? Is it going to be before training camp starts? Is it before the regular season? To me, I don't think that they're going the year without naming Bo Horvat the captain. It would surprise me. I know that Travis Green has been saying other things, but I think that we all know, that Bo Horvat will be the captain. I think the question is when do you do it, and who will the A's be on too? I'm intrigued by that as well.
Timing, I think, would be at the end of the preseason. I think something to hype up the season before it starts. And as far as A's, I mean, it'll be veterans. I saw that last year when the regular group of alternates, like Tanev and Eder, when they were out with injury, we saw Beagle Warren for a while. We saw Roussel as well. Brandon Sutter, of course, is in that mix. So some collection of those guys would be the two.
Yeah, I don't see them straying away from that. Horvat's the only younger player right now who's been around long enough and has the ability to not the ability, but the tenure to be given the A's. I think it'll be Bo as the C, and then I think they'll go with Edler as an A, and then probably Tanev as the other.
Yeah, that will be interesting. One of the controversies this week was about captaincy, and we heard Milan Lucic say basically that it was better to have he was used to having a captain as a 30-year-old Zdeno Chara. He made a comment about having a 30-year-old or older captain here in Calgary with Mark Giordano. Oiler fans have taken it as a slight to Connor McDavid. And there's some that debate the value of having a captain. Do you need a captain in today's NHL?
Yeah. I can't. I think so. Like, I think you need to have somebody that is going to be that person in the room, and even outside in the community as well. Like, I don't know. I see, like, maybe Flames fans are lucky. We have this amazing captain that is like super involved out in the community and running his own different nonprofits and all that stuff. And I think that's important to have that type of person.
Do you think Giordano is the face of the franchise, though?
Honestly, in my opinion, like, yes, but I don't know. Maybe that, like, I can see how you could argue someone else.
I'll get to that in a second.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's the whole debate, is whether or not the captain should be the face of the franchise, right? And I would say the face of the franchise is Johnny Gaudreau.
I would too, actually.
Yeah, and like that's the thing is like, yeah, you can say like your all-star players your face of your franchise, but I think it's like it can kind of go either way, like depending on what your thing is. It's like from like an NHL like just pure hockey watching perspective, then yeah, Gaudreau. But if you think about more the face of the franchise in the sense of the city and the community and that kind of thing, then maybe you have someone more like Gio.
I think it just depends. Every market's a little bit different for demands on a captain. So to be both the face of the franchise and the captain of the team is asking a lot, especially of a younger player. Like I bring up the Colorado example. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel Nate McKinnon's the face of that franchise, and he's not the captain. It's Gabe Landeskog, and I think that's working really well for them.
Yeah,
kind of distribute the responsibilities a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think that's what we're going to get with the Canucks. You'll have essentially Elias Pettersson being the face of the franchise, and Horvat being the captain.
Yeah, I don't think you need to have. Like, I don't really think they should be the same player at all. And like, if we go back to talk about Johnny Gaudreau, like, I don't actually think that Johnny Gaudreau would be good captain material. So that's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, like Kevin, you brought up McDavid. Now, I'm not picking on McDavid's leadership abilities here, but he is and the face of the franchise, and the guy looks tired, frankly. It does look like it's too much for him at times, especially when the going gets tough.
Yeah, I don't. Go ahead, Sean.
That's the whole thing. Is like the one of the jobs of the captain is to go out there and answer the tough questions after a bad loss, or and have to be out there answering questions all the time. So like when the Canucks were had Luongo as captain, that was one of the big criticisms, is that he wasn't talking on game days. Because he's a goalie, and goalies are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're gonna, you have to be a very special person, not just player, but person, to be able to be the best player on the team and the captain.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Connor McDavid is a great player. I just don't know if from what I'm seeing from his personality, and I don't know him personally, I don't think that he is the guy that necessarily wants to be in front of the camera all the time. I think if someone else would rather do it, I think he would prefer it.
Yeah, and that's if you look back at how the Canucks have handled Bo Horvat, not only have they brought him along a little slower on the ice, but he's also been really much the very, very often the guy doing the interviews in post game, in mid game, and all that. He's been the sort of more they've been sort of grooming him to be the captain with all that work that they've done with him with the media.
And Bo has pointed that out as well in recent interviews, that he's gotten that experience to do the additional media and stuff, and he's getting comfortable with it and feels ready for it. Just want to bring up the Maple Leafs here. I mean, they're in the same situation. They don't have a captain. There's a lot of people suggesting that Austin Matthews should be the guy, and it's the same thing there. Do you want the face of the franchise to also be the captain in one of the most demanding media markets? I'm not sure that Austin Matthews is the right fit for that. What impressed me last year in the playoffs when they bowed out against Boston is that it was Morgan Riley that came out and had the chat with Kyle Bukauskas fresh after the loss and did it very professionally. And I think if you had him as the captain and he's been there longer than Matthews, and put an A on Matthews, I think that would work really well for them too.
Yeah, I agree.
If you've been in a locker room or any sort of team, you may have one voice that talks and is the go-to, but you also have more of a team, a group of leaders that usually step up anyway. So just because you don't have the C on your jersey doesn't mean you can't be a leader. So if you're getting upset that you don't have the C on your jersey, then in my opinion, you're not captain material anyways.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that to get that, you have to earn it with the guys. You have to, and it takes a while to do that to get the respect. And it's not so much when you talk or how much you talk. It's when you don't talk and when you let things be at times. There's that part of it as well. And I think some people just have that ability naturally, and other people it doesn't come so naturally.
Yeah, it's everyone is very different with that, and I think that's where one of the things I do think I hope maybe the Oilers YYC podcast will address this. If there was someone not named McDavid that can be a captain on that team, I would be curious who they would have, and is it an insult if they take the C away from McDavid and put it on somebody else and allow this guy to just play hockey? Because I think that's ultimately what he wants to do. To me, I think he's been put in a situation that I don't think he's comfortable in. I don't think it fits him, but we'll see going forward. And it's fascinating to me because they had Gretzky, but Messier was the captain. So even in their own history, they have done what other teams have done. So
I just have a hard time seeing that happening for business reasons. At the end of the day,
too much of a gong show in terms of media relations and fan relations, because that just would you want to see something that blows up the internet and blows up hockey Twitter. That would be it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they're not going to make that change unless McDavid requests it.
Right, and then if
he's not going to do that,
and he won't. But I'm intrigued by that question.
But the other thing I'd like to say is that we don't know what goes on behind the scenes and in the locker room for the Oilers. He may be a great leader inside the locker room, but I do agree that he looks tired and he doesn't look. It just comes across. He doesn't come across as a very strong leader when talking to the media, because he he's not as outgoing as you would want from that type of role.
Yeah.
And that's just different personalities. So I think, as I said, and that's the other thing I think people need to realize, the fans need to realize, is that everything's changed, especially in Canadian markets and hockey mad markets, is that just because you're the best player doesn't mean that you should be captain, because the amount of expectations and weight and responsibility that are on your shoulders at that point is already a lot. And then you add in the being captain and having to be very articulate and being able to talk to the media consistently, whether it's good or bad, I think adds even more. So as Tyler said, spread the responsibility around, I think it would be smart. If you look at the history of the Montreal Canadiens lately, when was the last time they had their quote-unquote best player as their captain?
Yeah, it's been a while.
And having it work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think when they've had the best success, they've had like players like Brian Giunta as captain. And he wasn't their best player, but he was the best choice for that captain at that time.
Yeah.
So I think we need to take a look at that and figure that out. And as you said, with Morgan Riley, I think he'd be a great choice as captain for Toronto. And I think I really like the idea of Horvat as the captain in Vancouver, and Gio as the captain in Calgary makes sense. And then you've got Blake Wheeler as captain in Winnipeg when he's not the best player either. So it makes so much more sense to have the right player as opposed to the best player.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. There for sure. So there's a couple other things that I think we'll wait till next week, but let's see what Heidi's thought is. Is this what we're going to call it?
We'll think of a name.
Yeah, because I'm not liking the name.
Yeah, so I will preface this with saying that I will answer the question first because you might need a second to think about it. I've been thinking about this question myself, so a little ahead. So what I would like to pose to the group is, so I'm thinking like it's September, the season's like about to start, that kind of thing. So I was thinking about goal setting. Now, in the thought of how you want to, as a fan, as a hockey fan, as a fan of your respective team, however you want to take this, what are your goals for this season? So if you're confused by that, this is an example. So this is what my answer is to this question. So this year I want to get back into following the Flames prospects more, pay a little bit more attention to what's going on with the Heat. I used to listen to the game a lot, stream live, and then I hadn't been doing it now for I think the past 2 seasons. So that's something I want to do. For the sake of this podcast, I want to actually follow some more Canucks stuff, and so that I have a little bit more to say about Canucks related things. And I want to for sure watch more games of not just my team. I feel like that's I will for sure watch every Flames game or pretty close, but I don't find myself really watching or really paying attention to other teams, either in my division or even just in general across the league. So those are my kind of goals for the upcoming season.
So you're meaning this in sort of a personal development sense and not of is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
For me, it would be to listen to more hockey podcasts. There's so many, we're doing one. There's so many out there now. There's very interesting perspectives. And it's a great way to learn more about other teams and other fan bases and how they feel about their teams and how their teams are covered and all that kind of stuff. So if it would be a goal of mine to try and catch more of other hockey podcasts and learn from those.
Yeah, that's always a goal for me in every season, is to find a few more hockey podcasts so that I can add to my repertoire of listening to, because it's as you said, it's constant learning, and the game's evolving, and when you stick with the same group, it's great because it's really good. You like them, but you're not necessarily expanding your knowledge in that aspect. So definitely that, as well as just watch as much hockey as possible. It's always fun to watch it, and as well as get away from watching it. If I'm not out with friends, getting away from watching it while on Twitter and focusing more on the game and following the game more. Because I find that the social media black hole has sucked me in during games, and I haven't been able to be as critical in terms of my analysis of plays as I used to. So I'd like to get away from that and get back into being able to watch it and do that.
For me, not only do I want to listen to more, I would love to listen to more podcasts. I'd love to get them more on. But for me, I guess in terms of hockey with the podcast part, I would like us to work more together. Actually, I'd like to be more collaborative in terms of like not feeling like and I don't feel this way, but I don't want to feel like I'm competing with the C4 podcast. I'd like to work and even advertise for the C4 podcast and do some like, hey, check out the C4 podcast and what they're talking about, or the Oilers YYC podcast, or whatever other podcasts are out there. And we kind of work together to build each other up and develop our own like network. Because I think, to me, I don't know. I think if we're all doing great, I think that there's great options out there. So that's one of my goals in terms of, and watch more. Like I feel like I watch enough, but like make the time to make sure I watch more and listen more when I can, and balance that out with schoolwork. I'm going to be like, did you guys ever see that Homer Simpson episode where he was buying Lisa the pony and he was working at the power plant for 8 hours, and then he worked at a Pooh's for 8 hours, and then he said I would sleep for 2 hours and then do the paper route? That's what I'm kind of wondering, if that's what my life is going to be. But who knows? But we'll see. But yeah, also I'll be doing some play-by-play with a minor midget team here. So look, doing that, like, and so just learning more and just continuing to learn, but be more collaborative in the stuff that we do, and get into juniors a little bit. And, just keep growing, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to be. We will check in on these goals as the season goes on. If I forget to mention that, somebody else should do that. But we should actually kind of maybe check in on this and see how it goes. Yeah, for sure. So shout out to all the other podcasts. If you want some advertising, message me. We'll figure something out, and we'll work together on that. Well, quickly, we announced this a couple of weeks ago, but we are in the midst of rebranding. This is on Agree or Disagree with the podcast, but we're in the midst of a rebrand where we will be having our own hockey podcast, or the name of it determined, to be determined, I guess, because someone doesn't like it. Heidi. We're kind of going to be rebranding with our own website, Patreon, all social, all that sort of stuff. So that our goal is to launch in the beginning of October. We're working on that, so keep an eye out for that. Anything else we need to chat about?
I'd like to just give a shout out to the artist who did the Artie intro that we launched with today. He's my brother-in-law. You can follow him on Instagram and at LodgeBowlKind, and listen to his work.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because important. Yes. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I don't think so.
We do have a live listener as well, but
yes,
we'll keep him off for now. But you can follow me at KVOLE. Heidi, how do we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter, even though I am not on Twitter this weekend, and I'm actually trying to maybe step back a little bit from being on Twitter a little bit too much. But you can still follow me there once hockey season starts. Maybe I'll just be talking more hockey and following more hockey-related things like that. So you can find me at Heidi Amazeballs, so Heid Amazeballs, or you can follow me on Instagram at the same place.
Sean, Tyler.
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at Tnoble, Tnoble.
All right, and I am KEVOLE. We will talk to you all very soon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.